Accept me.
Hey, so you don't want it to be recorded? Then let me stop.
I want those who are no.
All right.
I want those who are absent to be punished.
They beg,
Anyway,
they beg.
that was just enlightenment.
So HR forecasting. When we talk about human resource forecasting, primarily it can be construed as the process of estimating the demand for and the supply of human resources in an organization. So in the broader sense, when we talk about HR forecasting, we are only trying to verify an estimate into the future as far as the demand for and the supply of human resources is concerned. Some of you still have your microphones on. Rhoda, kindly mute. Please, is the explanation for HR forecasting okay now?
No, sir.
Okay, so let me put it in another balance. Anytime we say an HR manager is embarking on human resource forecasting, it simply means that the HR manager is projecting into the future to verify the number of human resources that will be needed or that will be available in the organization. Now, I've made reference to two main things, needed and available. When we talk about the estimates of people that will be needed in an organization in future for it to be successful, then we are talking about demand forecasting. In the same vein, when we talk about the projections into the future to estimate the human resources that will be available in the organization in the near future, then we are talking about supply forecasting. So I have just merged the two to give you a simplistic overview of what HR forecasting is. And that is why I'm saying that HR forecasting is the process of estimating the demand for and supply of human resources in an organization. Now, implicit in this definition is both demand forecasting and supply forecasting. So the demand forecasting bit is where we are estimating the need for, whereas the supply forecasting is where we are estimating the availability of human resources in an organization. And all these projections are made into the future. Please, is it clear now?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, it's clear. But sir, that means if there is a demand and there is no availability, that means supply cannot take place.
No, you are merging, you are compounding it. If you make the estimates and it gives you a certain number of human resources that will be demanded,
yes,
then you work towards it, either through recruitment and selection or through promotion or any other form of action plan. In the same vein, when you make your supply forecast and you realize that in future, a lot of people are likely to retire or a lot of people are likely to go on, how do you call it, sabbatical leave, or maybe they might be on steady leave. Then it means that there are likely to be some deficits as far as the supply of human resources is concerned. So you take an action plan.
So what is sabbatical leave?
Sabbatical leave is predominantly used in academia, where a lecturer, having worked for at least 5 years, applies for a leave of absence, which he is also entitled to some pay. And within this period, the lecturer pursues some of his academic or non-academic agenda. Academic could be perhaps working in a different establishment to enhance their KSAs, or it could also be an opportunity for them to rejuvenate themselves. So in most cases,
so it means if you are a lecturer, if you are a lecturer and you are being appointed into a particular position, like government position, you can go on sabbatical leave.
Yes.
After you have been disappointed or your government goes out, you can come back and then take over your job that you were.
That one is not sabbatical. That one is not sabbatical. So, for instance, for instance, at least I've worked in academia for at least 5 years. Now, when I say I'm going for a sabbatical leave, it means that at this point in time, I do not have a PhD. And so I'm going to use that opportunity to get a PhD. That will be a sabbatical leave.
Okay. Now I understand.
Yeah. Now, in most multinational enterprises too, they have, because they put a lot of premium on training and development, they have also institutionalized sabbatical leave. And it is during those periods where their workforce used to also enhance their academic background. Okay, so let's make progress. Now, human resource professionals can use several techniques to generate predictions about the future in order to determine their impact on HR practices. So basically what I'm trying to say is that in an attempt to make accurate forecasts into the future to estimate the demand for and the supply of human resources, you can employ several techniques. And all these techniques can be put under the umbrella of quantitative techniques and qualitative techniques. When we say an estimation technique is quantitative, it simply means that it employs a lot of mathematical equations and numbers in an attempt to make the projections. Conversely, when we say an estimation technique is qualitative, it means that it relies on the experiences of the supervisors or the managers who are in charge of those departments in order to make projections into the future. And they all come with their advantages and disadvantages as far as the quantity and quality is concerned, which I'm pretty sure you've already been introduced in your research methods class. Now, so let's continue. Successful firms combine statistically driven quantitative forecasts with their more qualitative expert processes to achieve the most complete demand forecast. In some circumstances, to make up for the deficits of the quantity and the deficits of the quality, they employ the combination of the two. But in the current dispensation of HR practices, there are a lot of sophisticated softwares that have been developed, which you can easily use to do the quantitative. In the same vein, depending on the amount of experience that the managers running a department have, they can equally rely on their expertise and previous historical records in order to make the HR forecast. So they are all equally accepted. Now, the basis of the forecast is the annual budget and long-term business plan translated into activity level for each function and department. Whenever we are making any HR projections, it is always contingent on the financial position. So that is what I mean by the annual budget. How much has been put aside to cater for such futuristic HR needs? And also, in terms of long-term objectives, we are basically referring to the strategic objectives which management or an organization intends to achieve. And usually these objectives are broken down into short-term, medium-term, and long-term objectives, which are further fractionalized for each of the departments to align themselves with. So if you quite remember, some time back, I spoke about vertical integration. So the degree to which the long-term business plans will be translated and synchronized with that of the various functional departments is what we call the vertical integration. In the strict sense of it, we have two main HR forecasts. You can embark on two main types of HR forecasting, either demand forecasting or supply forecasting. So a chunk of our today's lectures will center on demand forecasting. Okay, so we are starting with the demand forecasting components. Demand forecasting is primarily the process of determining the future need of human resources in terms of quantity and quality. The process of determining future need of human resources in terms of quantity and quality. So when the central tenets of human resource forecasting is intended to project how many employees we will need in future in order to be successful, and of these employees, of what quantity and quality should they possess, then we are doing demand forecasting. Please, is that point clear?
Yes, please.
So the supply forecasting will, who can try and attempt it? How it can be explained, supply forecasting. I've already said it, but I'm just trying to monitor if you are paying attention. Yes.
Okay, it's now one will have to do with the process of determining determining the employees available.
Okay, so
the number of employees available in terms of quantity and quality.
Good. So that will be available in future in terms of quantity and quality. You always have to bring the future component in your explanation in order to make it a forecast. All right. Good. Now, it is done to meet the future personnel requirements of an organization to achieve the desired level of output. And this is usually the case when perhaps we intend to expand and we are not certain whether the current number of employees we have will be in a good position in terms of quantity and quality to assist us in terms by a way of expanding. And that is where the supply, the demand forecasting comes in. Future human resource needs can be estimated with the help of organizational current human resource situation and an analysis of the organizational plans and procedures. And so what we are saying here is that all these projections are made based on the information you gather within your organization. And these are what we call the factors which are considered when making the forecast. And these factors, we'll be looking at them very shortly. So hence, the basis of the forecast must be the annual budget and long-term corporate objectives, which I mentioned earlier on. And these are usually translated into the activity level for each department and functions. So whereas in the general sense of it, the HR forecasting takes into consideration the budgeting and the corporate objectives of the organization. Both demand and supply forecasting does not deviate from that path. All right. Now let's look at some of the factors that need to be considered when you are embarking on demand forecasting. Factors that need to be considered when you are embarking on demand forecasting. In fact, can some of you try, because indirectly I've mentioned two. Yes.
Say,
What are some of the factors?
say that is it the demand?
Yeah, the demand forecasting.
So what about gender?
Gender. Well, it will depend on, gender wouldn't be an everyday factor that we consider, but if there is the introduction of an affirmative action.
Then age, demographics.
So you can talk about the demographic status of human resources, so that you box all those variables under, you box the gender, education, and all what have you under the demographics. Okay, what again?
So can we consider expansion? Project expansion.
Yes. Intention to expand. That is also one of the factors. Yeah, Jennifer. Okay, Mensa.
Skills. What about finance? Issue of finance.
Financial position, good. So that is even staring in your face. The annual budget I have here. Good. So thank you very much. Jennifer.
So the corporate objective.
The corporate objectives. So it is actually the prime issue that needs to be considered, and it is actually the first factor which necessitates whether you need more hands or you are rather supposed to lay off some people. So like Seidu rightly mentioned, if the intention is to expand, then you need more hands. But if the intention is to rather downsize, then you have to what? Lay some people off. Jennifer.
Hello, sir.
Okay, go on, Mensa.
Please, I wanted to ask if a government of the day policy can have effect on.
Yes. Government regulations, policies, and practices can also have an impact in terms of, it could be construed as one of the factors of demand or supply forecasting. Okay, good. I like the way you are thinking. Now, so some of the factors include outcomes of one's environmental scanning, including how the economy is doing, how the pressures within your environment is also booming. It could also be some features of the organization, predominantly the strategic goals or objectives or strategic plans of the organization can also be construed as another factor that needs to be considered when you are making any sort of HR forecast. Then expected demand for your product or services. And you all agree with me that in some sectors where we have seasonal products, for instance, when we are nearing Christmas, the demand for your goods and services might skyrocket. And for that matter, it becomes imperative that you have some standby to help you during those periods. And immediately things plateau, then you also reverse back to your usual proceedings. Then organizational design or job design, which you intend to employ. And if the design is such that it will employ the use of technology, it means that jobs which were previously handled by 2 or more people can now be harnessed under the technology to be performed or executed through artificial intelligence. Projected budget, so the financial position, new products or processes or ventures. So that is where the issue of your expansion will come in terms of introducing some new products into the business markets. So these are some key factors I was able to identify. Now, so when we say all these are factors that we consider, it simply means that at any point in time, you as the HR manager must be on top of your game. What I mean by this is that you must be privy to all the happenings within and without your organization. Then you will identify the ones that needs to be featured in your estimations. So whereas for organization A, the competitive nature or the competitions in their environment would demand that they bring out more people with a lot of marketing and innovative ideas to enhance their sales on board. For you, that you might not be putting premium on it because your environment might not be privy to this cutting through competition, and so on and so forth. Yes, I can. Mensa. Hello, Mensa.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I see your hand up.
Yeah, please. I wanted to ask if we can have possible natural disasters to be put as one of them.
Yes, natural disaster. So those are the things that we call unforeseen circumstances, but unforeseen or supervening events. They need to be considered, but in terms of human resources, it is almost always very difficult to make predictions for some of these unforeseen circumstances. So very soon, when I get to the regression estimation technique, I will remind me to draw your attention to where all those unforeseen events are put in an attempt to make the estimations. So some of the factors, we have control over them, and we can easily conceptualize them in our estimation. There are others too, irrespective of how well we are or how good we are in our estimation, we will never be able to predict them. So those are the ones that we construe as supervening events, and in an attempt to estimate human resources, irrespective of the forecast, be it demand or supply, we construe them as disturbances in the model or an error term. So when we get to the regression side, I will quickly draw your attention to it. Douglas, quickly, in about 5 minutes time, the link will be going off. So immediately it goes off, you just join again, okay? I'm using my personal account.
Yes, sir.
All right, Douglas, go on. Oh, you don't have a question and your hand is up. Anyway, so...
I'm having a problem with the network.
Okay, all right. So far, I have spoken about human resource forecasting. I have also explained what human resource demand forecasting is. And prior to this explanation, I indicated that you can have either human resource demand forecasting as well as human resource supply forecasting. And each of these estimation techniques, you can embark on it quantitatively or qualitatively. So we are now going to consider the various quantitative techniques that can be used to estimate demand forecasting. The various quantitative techniques that can be used to estimate demand forecasting of human resources. Now, the cornerstone of all the quantitative techniques is that it is strongly driven by numbers, statistics, or data. It seldomly makes use of subjective judgment. So the main distinction between the qualitative and the quantitative techniques is that unlike the qualitative forecasting techniques, which relies on the subjective judgments of managers running specific departments. The quantitative techniques use an objective approach. And when I say objective, it uses numbers and numerical data to make the futuristic projections. So one,
can we say in an organization that produces a lot of products, you use the number of product that was bought last year. Based on that data, you use to project this year what the customers will be demanding.
You are explaining the trend analysis, but I have not even gotten to that place.
Oh,
take your time. Take your time. Why? I'm just trying to juxtapose the quantitative techniques with the qualitative techniques. So when we say you are using a quantitative technique, it means that your estimations are rigidly driven by numerical data that you have at your disposal. And when we say you are using a qualitative technique, it means that you are not so much interested in the numbers, but you are interested in using your subjective experience of how things have been happening in the past, or in your community of practice, how things have been happening. And you are relying on such judgment to make your futuristic projections. So that is the distinction between the two. Now, let's take trend analysis. Okay, the thing will be going off very soon. So if you have any question, ask. Let's use it to make some discussion before we start the next session with the trend analysis. Any question? Please, if you have any question, this is the time. Okay, then if you don't have a question, I have questions for you. So, who can tell me the distinction between the distinction between quantitative techniques and the qualitative techniques of HR forecasting?
Say.
Yes, Jennifer, go on.
With the quantitative technique, they mostly use the objective approach, which is the numerical data,
okay,
to make their future projections.
Okay.
But with the qualitative, they use the subjective approach.
Okay.
Yes, to make their future projections.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. And what are the two main types of HR forecasting?
The demand forecasting.
The demand forecasting, the supply
Very
forecasting.
good. Very good. And what is the demand forecasting?
The demand forecasting has to do with the process of estimating the demand for and supply of HR in an organization.
No. Who would also like to try?
So the demand forecast has to do with forecasting into the future, the number of employees that will be needed.
That will be needed. Very good. So what will be the supply forecasting?
And the supply forecasting is also has to do with taking stock of existing employees, taking stock of existing employees to know. Hello.
Yeah, Jennifer.
Hello.
Yeah, go on.
Hello.
Yeah, Jennifer.
Yeah,
go on. Oh, someone should kill it for us.
Hello, sir.
Yes, Mensa, go on.
The supply forecasting. The supply forecasting, it show how many people will be available for the future purpose.
Very good, very good, very good. Thank you very much. So I like it the way you are put it in. It's in your own balance, and when you write it that way, it does not become necessary for you to go and chew so that you pour it in the when the time comes. Okay, so be rehearsing it and practicing it in that regard. All right, so it will be going off very soon. Quickly join so that we continue with the next part.